Hey, well, thanks for being here, everybody. We are talking today about the new book that is launching this next week in February 23rd. What's Your Next? The Blueprint for Creating Your Freedom Lifestyle. And I've got with me today the magnificent father-son team of Richard James and Michael Strauch. Gentlemen, I appreciate you being here.
Hey, David, thanks for having us. It's always a pleasure when we get to hang out with other superstars like yourself. I feel, just like somebody told me once, I'm a model presenter, and then I went and looked up the definition of model, and it said a small interpretation of the real thing, right? And so with you and Michael next to me, that's kind of what I feel like.
Listen, we all have mutual respect. Michael, good to have you here too, sir.
Yeah, David, I appreciate it. It's great to be back. Had a wonderful experience the last time we were together, so I'm excited for today's conversation.
Well, this is especially good because I love having the generational aspect. Obviously, Richard and I being somewhat close, we won't talk about who's older here, but we both are an older generation. But we got all the wisdom, right? But we have younger Michael, who I think, if I recall correctly, are you 22? Are you all 22 years now?
Yep, I'm all 22 years,
all 22.
Working on that 23rd, but I'm not rushing it.
Don't rush it at all. So, the reason I wrote this book is because through my life and through people like your dad's, Richard, who's here, and other people that, I've had the blessing to associate with, what we realize as entrepreneurs is that life is never a straight line. We think maybe it's going to be when we're younger and we're going to school and we're, getting the grades and, rising up the ranks to whatever we think we're going to be. As young kids, we have a vision, usually some kind of vision. It's going to change. It's always going to change, but we have that vision. And so we get into life and we start doing the thing, and we realize so quickly that life, and particularly today, I think more than ever, gentlemen, is life it changes so fast. We've got technology changes, we've got information changes that have just really remolded the world, Richard, much more than when we were kids growing up, where things changed, but not as rapidly. And now we're in this flux state where nothing stays static for very long at all. I mean, from year to year, in any kind of business or in the economics, geopolitical situation is just changing so fast. And I think the key here is you can't ever get into a rut. You can't get stagnant. You cannot get complacent about getting to some position in life and kind of calling it good or writing it out or just kind of going through to that mystical someday called retirement. I mean, that's such old school. And so I had to write a book about kind of my vision for life. And that's like never retire, but always evolve. And you two, Richard, you and Michael, espouse that so well. That's why I want to have you here today. So thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I think you said, the key is not to get stuck in a rut. What do they say? A rut is nothing more than a grave with the ends kicked out, right? And that's what a rut feels like. And if I'm honest, at 50, I'm 51 this year, it would be very easy for me to be complacent. My business allows me to kind of play golf when I want and have a great team and great clients, and it makes more money than we can spend. And so I could be, kind of just sit back and do nothing and feel like I'm somewhat retired. But having a 22-year-old who's just ready to run, right? And says, "Come on, Dad, let's go. I built my thing, you built your thing. Now let's go build something together." And I looked at his mother, my wife, my East Coast Italian bride, and I said, "Do I've got one more startup in me?" She goes, "It's your son. Of course you've got one more startup in you,
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go. So this youth, it's great to have this young blood around me who's enthusiastic and is willing to implement at such a high level. I don't know, Michael, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I feel the same exact way, but it's funny enough because even at 22 years old, I know it's only 22, but it can be easy to get complacent. When you build up a business that's generating you passive income, complacency can definitely occur. And I started to feel that a little bit. And that's why I lit the fire under the old man there and told him it's time we go do something together. And I think we're working our way to that.
The truth is, David, while he was in college over this last semester of his senior year, he just let the money roll in, and he had to take online classes, and all he did was go play golf. So I show up on the golf course for the first time with him, and I'm like, "Holy crap, you can actually play! Where did that come from?" Oh wait, I forgot. You didn't actually go to class over the last three months. You played golf over the last 3 months. So it's nice to be at 22 years old, have the financial freedom to be able to do that. And so it's fun to watch him, even in his complacency, take something to the next level.
So
they gave me the opportunity.
All we have to have you do is experience a major market reset correction, Michael. But I know that you don't need that. You don't need that to stir you. So one of the things I wrote about in my book, I talked about 5 freedom assets, and I think of it as an asset as being a resource of some kind that has some kind of economic value to it. And so I labeled the 5 as this, gentlemen. I'd like to kind of maybe go through those and just kind of get your interpretation. But the five are: number 1, yourself. Investing in yourself. I mean, and you both have done that amazingly well for your life. We'll talk about that a little bit. Second would be invest in a business of some kind. Well, again, all 3 of us have done that, continue to do that in different aspects. Relationships. We just got through talking about, Richard, about the people that we've met along the way, the people that help influence us and give us perspective. And Michael, you're finding the same thing through the people that you've associated with. And then number 4 is investing your capital. So yeah, you've got the passive income coming in from a business, but you want multiple streams, right? So where else can you invest that capital where maybe you're not the one that's directly in control of it, but you collaborate with other people, you find other investments that make sense to give you the additional diversity and flexibility. And then number 5, with freedom assets, is investing in your legacy, which to me is not waiting until the day you die and you have the eulogy on your tombstone. It's like, what are you doing right now to provide impact to other people, however that fits for you, but your purpose, your meaning in life, the significance you have, and so focusing on those 5, I believe is part of building, a freedom lifestyle. So let's just talk with investing in yourself. And Michael, your dad just talked about the fact, you just graduated college. So obviously you got a degree, but you weren't just you weren't investing in the formal education process a whole lot. You did enough to graduate, but what were you also doing on the side, investing in some of these other assets I just described?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, I was at college, and like we discussed in our previous conversation back when we did the podcast, I would apply myself in terms of I would get my work done. I would focus on getting good grades just because I'm a high achiever and I've always worked on getting good grades. But that was not where I learned entrepreneurship. And really, that's not where my heavy investment came in terms of myself. Where my investment came is I would spend my time, free time, I should say, when I wasn't in class, in watching YouTube videos, in reading, in meeting with people. And they all kind of encompass the 5 core pillars you just laid out, which was investing my time into self-education, where I could advance my knowledge of different areas of business, even outside of business, health and wellness. These are all different things I was very interested in. And I knew I wasn't going to learn it traditionally, just sitting in a classroom. In addition to that, I would have relationships with colleagues, with mastermind groups, with my girlfriend, and trying to balance and make sure I pour myself into each of those relationships in a very balanced way, as I mentioned. But these were all different pillars that went into my time in college, and then moving out of college. It doesn't change. It's still the same thing. I just have more time outside of a classroom to be able to do it. I don't have to sit in a classroom and do homework every day.
Fantastic. Richard, I know your background story as well, and you've never wanted to let any grass grow under your feet. Now, sometimes it's because of need, force of the economic situation, but also you've always been one to evolve and take what I call some of the essential skill sets that are not taught in school, which is sales and marketing. Talk about how you kind of grew up and matured through time, and some of the iterations you did in the businesses that you've been involved in.
Yeah, so when I was 17 years old and going off to college, junior college, that's really all I had in me. My uncle, pseudo uncle, came to me and said, "Here's $100. You get more for A's than you do for C's, but more importantly, here's a copy of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This will be the best education you ever had." And he pointed me towards Napoleon Hill and Jim Rohn and the idea that a formal education will make you a living, a self-education will make you a fortune. And so from a very early age, he also gave me Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field on cassette tape. So I had Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and I had Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field. And I would go to sleep often in, an induced state of beer at college, listening to Earl Nightingale's tapes on how to be a better everything other than just a student at school. And then from there, after I got the idealistic stuff knocked out of me and I took my lumps, my second mentor, my uncle, really took me under his wing and showed me how to be a man and showed me how to run a business and the right way and how to be a professional. And then from there, I took off. I just never stopped learning. I was always driving down the road, listening to Automobile University. I mean, my poor kids, there was never listening to the radio. It was always listening to Dan Kennedy or somebody, right? And
Right.
So maybe that's where Michael and his brother gets it from, because it was forced upon them. But yeah, I highly believe, in 1993, I set a goal of reading a book a week. And since 1993, up until probably a couple of years ago, I achieved that goal. And I used to do one book of fiction and one book of business and alternate. And now, because of Audible and Kindle, now I couldn't tell you how many books I read, because I listen to on 2.5 times speed, and I'm listening to podcasts. And so now it's just like everywhere I go, whether it's the car or on the treadmill or run or golf, I'm listening to something that's filling my mind with a piece of education. And I think that's the secret, right? It just never stop. I can't imagine I'll go to my grave not having my ear pod in, listening to something. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's just who you are. Hey, by the way, Phil Brakefield, I saw your comment. Thanks for jumping on, buddy. You are definitely one of my icons in life, and I know you've got a book coming out soon too, which I want to see that. So, Phil, thanks for being here. Michael, back to you. Talking about people that kind of get in a rut or complacent in life. I think a lot of the times it's fear. People get into a place where they feel like they got some stability, some security. Life is pretty good, maybe like you had it this last year. But I want to know about a lot of times what people I think are afraid of, and that is like rocking the boat, right? So if I tried something else, if I push myself, out of my comfort zone to just try something else, either I'm afraid I would fail at that because I'm kind of good where I am right now. What do you think about that? I mean, I know that's not how you live your life, but what do you say to that, to people that seem to like just kind of want to play it safe?
Well, I think life's too short to play it safe. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there, and I see so many people just fit the traditional mold, as you like to say. And I think that there's a world of new opportunities, a world of happiness that people will never, ever know just because they're not willing to take any risk. And I'm also one to believe that I'm not going to say I encourage failure, but failure is a good thing because you're able to learn from that. So if you fail, who cares? You just keep going. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day. Now, a lot of people have different stories, have different backgrounds, are in different situations. And obviously failure in some contexts might be a much more severe outcome. But at the end of the day, you still do have the opportunity to pick yourself back up and keep going. So I think you should absolutely take risks. And there's no reason to sit back in your traditional path and not explore the opportunities ahead of you. Again, it goes back to, I think life's too short to play it safe.
Richard, what have you learned in setbacks or failures, things that didn't work? It's painful to go through those times, no question about it. But on the other side, it's kind of Michael was alluding to, what's on the other side? If you look at it with perseverance and the fact that you can weather the storm, what opportunities do you see on the other side?
Yeah, David, it's a great question. And by the way, just so I say it, thanks so much for including Michael and I in your book. I'm honored to be there and be able to give a reference point to people, and hopefully they can learn something from our journey. As I just went through our most recent event with our members, I have oftentimes something called a fireside chat. And this event's focus was about profit. And so I shared a piece of my life. Many of them knew it, many of them didn't. And I showed my journey. 14 years ago, if you look at my profit and loss statement, doing $1.5 million in business, which at that point I thought was all the money in the world, I lost $40,000. And I had lost consequently millions of dollars, more than that. On the bottom line of the P&L was something called the fee for the U.S. trustee, because we had to file a Chapter 11 from all the debt we had in the business that went in the wrong direction. Maria and I, my East Coast Italian bride, literally lost every single nickel. And I didn't know enough not to spend it all, like the retirement fund, the college fund, everything was gone, because we thought we were going to save this baby that at that time we didn't realize wasn't savable. And so if you fast forward now 14 years from today and watch the journey, and of course I taught the lessons I learned along the way and how we made our move. We've now recouped everything that we lost. And, just this year, we're able to, in the next month, close on $1 million home in North Carolina that we could have paid cash for. And that's not bragging. That's just showing the journey. And I don't think that would have been possible. Matter of fact, I know that would not have been possible had I not gone through the turmoil, and I mean real stress and just anxiety of losing everything. It hurts. To tell you that failure is easy, I'd be lying to you, right? I understand why people are afraid of it. It does hurt as you go through it. But you come out the other side of that so galvanized, so just bulletproof in so many ways, to be able to take on the challenge. And you don't start at zero. You start at zero plus all your knowledge and experience that you came out with, and you get to launch towards your next future with rapid speed. So personally, having lost everything, made it all back, and now on a path, to be able to make more in a year than I made in 5, really is just, and maybe even better, to be able to give away more than a year than I used to make in a salary. It is just a special thing that would not have been possible if it was not for the failures along the way.
That's really great advice. And I believe that, people today, so many people, do have, kind of that sunk cost fallacy in the formal education, in the groups that we help, Richard, you with attorneys, a lot of education there. Me with dentists, a lot of education. It's very specialized skill sets, right? Boy, especially for my dentist. I mean, the skill sets there, dealing with the mouth, the oral cavity, very specialized, but not a lot of adaptability. I mean, if you can't do dentistry, if you don't have your hands in this case, you're kind of out. And so I believe that, what you and Michael, as a father and son, and what you collectively and through the DNA from your family, I believe, you develop very quickly, and Michael's developing these transferable skill sets that are adaptable into lots of different arenas. I talked earlier about sales and marketing, communication, leadership, things that you never learn in school, but if you're out there in life, you can learn these things, and that's where you're able to switch and move from one industry to another. I mean, we'll talk a little bit in a minute about what you and Michael are working on now, but these opportunities have come from the fact that you have developed these additional skill sets that allow you to pivot and maneuver through ups and downs, and whether there are situations that you can or can't control, you can pick up the pieces and move on, because there's always problems to solve, are there not?
Oh, well, and I think that's the real joy. I think so. I do believe entrepreneurs can be made, but I think they're born. You could have easily had, by the way, our whole family on this call, right? Because mom is the matriarch of the family, and she was not risk adverse, but wasn't raised in an entrepreneurial home, and would have preferred to make her living and save her money and just retire at 65. That's kind of what she was raised in. But I dragged her into this world, and she found a way to survive and thrive. And now she's building her own thing. And Michael's brother, his 20-year-old brother, moved to New York City at 19 years old. And he would tell you maybe he's a little risk adverse, but I tell him, are you kidding me? At 19 years old, you moved to New York City on your own in the middle of a pandemic, and you're going out there trying to figure out how to get gigs in audio engineering. And so we have this spirit in our family. And I think it really came because our kids watched us go through these lessons and figure out how to conquer problems. We never looked at it as, oh my gosh, there's a problem and it's a stopping block. Rather, we looked at it and said, much like that old saying, I see the mountain in front of me. I'm either going to figure out how to go around, tunnel underneath, or climb over the top, or stay until I turn that mountain into gold. And that's just our challenge and our personality. And I do think as an entrepreneur or in an entrepreneurial family, that's it. That's the secret, right? Looking at having this grit to look at a problem and say, how can I overcome it? What can I learn from this? What's the real silver lining, or where is the gold inside of this? And I don't know, that's how we live our life. And I wish I could give that gift to everybody, because I think it's the most rewarding way to live.
Oh, so well said. So, Michael, why don't you give us a little bit of an insight into what you and your dad are kind of working on right now? It kind of, co-opting, joint venturing together.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, I got my business to the point where I kind of do it passively, which is,
and by the way, before we go down that road, let's talk about your actual business. What is your business that you've been running since your college days in your dorm room? What is your business?
Yeah, great question. So you noted it very well in the book. What started in college was the web development agency as a whole, and I was doing done-for-you work. But in addition to that, I also had the YouTube channel, which was a passive income stream. The problem is the YouTube channel is what originally led me to getting the client work. And then when I got the client work, what ended up slacking was the YouTube channel, because now I've got all of these clients that I have to manage.
Right.
And so at the end of 2019, what I actually decided was, I don't know if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life in terms of a web design agency and running client work. So I decided to take a step back and say, okay, but what I do enjoy doing is the content creation part of YouTube. So what I decided was I'm going to wind down the web development agency side of things and focus 2020 on purely YouTube. And that's exactly what I did. It was the best decision I could have ever made, because what it allowed me to do is exponentially increase the amount of time I had available to me and make actually more money than I did with the agency, just because I was able to keep more of what I made. And so it was a beautiful thing. And what that led to is, toward the end of 2020 here, like we mentioned, I had a lot of free time on my hands because everything became so passive. And I decided that I wanted to do something with my father. And we sat down and we talked about it, and we rolled through a lot of ideas. In fact, he came out to North Carolina with my mom for the holidays, and we basically dedicated all of December through January, outside of Christmas, Christmas Eve, New Year's, and New Year's Eve, to exploring what type of opportunities we had ahead, what we wanted to get involved with, what we didn't want to get involved with, what would play well to our strengths, what would play well to our weaknesses. And we just explored about every opportunity you could imagine. And after finally going through the month, they headed back to Arizona, and we kind of simmered for a minute to kind of digest all of the opportunities we explored. And we finally fell onto a sales training company, something that we can do together, that we both absolutely love to do and plays to our strengths. And we believe we can impact a lot of people doing it. And so we are super excited to be exploring that. We're getting the process started and the ball rolling now, and that's kind of our next step. So that's my next adventure.
So Richard, who is the sales training going to be for? Who's the focus? Who's the avatar?
Yeah, so the avatar is predominantly people who sell by appointment. So there are three facets to this sales training. The first is getting the appointment set and getting them to show up to their appointment. And that's the phone capacity of it. The second facet of it is selling through Zoom, and helping people understand how to close in a Zoom conference. That now that we've gone to this virtual world, it's not going away. Right. We will eventually move back to somewhat in-person sales, but there will always be a Zoom or a virtual component, and they need to have that skill and understand how to do it. And then the third is actually getting paid, and depending on the business, that differs in many different facets. Our primary first focus, we've decided, because it's what's the most current need, is paying attention to Zoom and building out that process to train, whether it's professionals, probably in the world of professionals, coaches, consultants, that need to close a deal over Zoom in that initial consultation. It's taking somebody who came in as a lead, who set an appointment, and now how do we get them to sign on the dotted line and become a client, a customer, or a patient? And so that's really what we're going to be focused on. And, so I'll tell you that it speaks volumes that of my trust in my son, because when we laid all this out, it became really evident. Funny, I had like 10 conversations with my clients in the last probably 3 weeks about how they're really struggling to make the leap from in-person to virtual sales, and how they really need help. And I'm like, really, God? Okay, I got it. So as that was unfolding, I said to Michael, I go, listen, if you're willing to go down this path and go through a bit of a boot camp with me, I will trust you with my relationships, and we'll build this together. So we'll probably launch inside of my world, a very soft launch, but Michael's, he's being humble. He's really said to himself, you know what, I'm willing to go through an extensive boot camp to get the proper training. So not only does he already know how to sell, but now he's going to learn a very specific sales type inside of a law firm. So that's where we're going to start. But we're not building it just for law firms, not because it's not that I don't love them, but it's applicable to so many other niches.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. No, it's so good. I mean, and what you guys are doing is the actual spirit of what I talk about. There's always a next place to evolve to, whether it's out of need or it's out of desire, because there's new problems to solve, always new problems to solve. And if you have some skill sets that you develop that, again, are transferable, then you have all the opportunities in the world to move and iterate with the changes in the economics cycle. And just, the other cool thing is you get to have fun. And you guys have fun as father and son, but you get to have fun. You get to choose the people you want to work with. It's really business by design, is it not, gentlemen? It's business by design, and just getting out of that mindset that you have to stay in that original career path, that formal education, whatever you had. It's so outdated. It's like, use that as a jumping off point. No problem. Like Michael, I know you're always going to be happy you have a base education. But my gosh, I look back at all the things I learned, and I know, Richard, you in school. And I mean, other than learning how to basically read and write and do some basic math, I mean, the rest has all been self-education. It's been all assets that I've developed since then, just because we learned very early, all of us, to get out there and just never stay complacent in one spot.
I probably wasn't the best student. I probably majored more in Milwaukee's best than I did anything else. But that being said, I think there's a really strong place for education. Michael has spoke out about this, about the reality that, there's more to a formal education than just the education. There's the social aspect. And I think Michael would admit that helped him a lot. But, David, you said something very interesting. And to give a nod to both your and my mentor, Dan Kennedy, who wrote the foreword for your book, he promised me, without promising me in so many words, that if I followed what he said, that at some point in my career, I could have the confidence that you could take everything away from me right now. And within 6 months and a laptop and a couple $100 in my pocket, I could have a profitable business up and running in 6 months and learn how to take all the knowledge I have. The fear, unless you took my brain away, the fear of being able to start all over again and build something is gone. Once you know the steps, once you figure out the formula, once you figure out this path, as you laid out these 5 pillars, inside of this one pillar is the business pillar. And I'm speaking specific to that. It's not connected. It's very connected to yourself. It's very connected to relationships and capital and legacy. But if you understand the moving parts inside of a business, it could be the best gift that was ever given to you. And that's the gift that Dan Kennedy gave to me. I know you feel like he gave it to you. And it's the gift I try to give my members, as well as the gift you try to give yours. And I feel like it's the gift that Michael now owns, ironically enough, at 22 years old. Could you imagine if you and I knew what Michael knows at 22 years old? Seriously?
Scary. Just absolutely scary. So Michael, I know you have the same confidence, not cavalier, but the same confidence that your dad just spoke about, in that I know you're not afraid. There's a lot of people that are afraid today, afraid because of COVID, the pandemic, the market's in a bubble. Oh my gosh, unemployment is still not stable. I know you're not. You have a very forthright confidence, just from what your dad just spoke about, because of your young age at 22. You've already established the fact that you have the resources and the capabilities to be able to figure it out, whatever it might be. Correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
So I appreciate you guys being here, Richard and Michael, today. I'm so proud that you're a part of the book, folks. If you want to hear more about Richard James and Michael Strauch's story, it is right here in the book. what's your next. The Amazon launch is next Tuesday, February 23rd. Pre-orders are in place right now. And I appreciate you guys because, you know, my relationships specifically here today with you is a big inspiration for this book. So thank you for being contributors in many ways to it.
David, it's a pleasure. It really is a pleasure. And I'm super excited for everyone to get a copy of this because I already see the value that you're bringing, and it's tremendous. I appreciate you allowing us to be part of this journey.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I agree, my friend. You know, I know a book my clients are getting, so I appreciate you writing it. It's right on point. It hits all of the major things that people need to know as they go through this entrepreneurial journey. And the folks that are reading this book that you wrote, you know, as they absorb the material, what's going to become clearly evident is that you are an excellent curator of this information, and you've delivered it in a way that is practical and applicable immediately. So I implore everybody go out and obviously grab the book. But thanks for having us be part of this call today, David. It's always a pleasure to work with you. We're all busy people, right? Everybody's got things to do,
Yep.
but you're one of those gentlemen that Michael and I would stop what we're doing and make sure we show up for. So thanks for inviting us.
I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
All right, my friend.
Nice.